Welcome to Mill Plain United Methodist Church. I'm Pastor Sue Ostrom, and we're glad to host this conference. You are welcome here. Our opening statement every Sunday is Mill Plain welcomes people of all ages, races, gender identities, gender expressions, sexual orientations, abilities, and immigration status. So you truly are welcome here. If you need a bathroom, if you go down the hallway this side to the end, on the left, there are both men's and women's bathrooms, and welcome to make use of that. So I'm going to turn this over to Donna Pritchard now to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you to your congregation as well for hosting this event. This is being brought to you by the Clark County United in Faith Coalition, which is a brand new organization that was spawned by the January Call to Action event held at St. Andrew Lutheran Church here in Vancouver. And at that event, which was designed to bring Christians together who were concerned about what was happening nationwide in terms of the loss of civil liberties and the oppression and the authoritarianism of the federal government. And along with bringing those folks together for a worship experience, we invited various different organizations that are working locally to push back. And one of those organizations was the Portland chapter of Christians Against Christian Nationalism. And so we are thrilled to welcome them here today to offer us some specific information and to demythologize a little bit what is this Christian nationalism that we've heard so much about. And our speaker today is the Reverend Ken Howard, who is I think a founding member of the Portland chapter and is on their community connections team, I believe is correct, and is also ordained in the Episcopal tradition. And so we are thrilled to have him here. He's quite the expert on Christian nationalism. And I just want to let you know, as you exit today, on the tables in the narthex, you will find some more information from the Portland chapter about their work. And also there's a little bit of information about the coalition and an opportunity for you to sign up if you wish. And most importantly, you will find a basket for a free will offering to help cover the costs of printing for the Christians Against Christian Nationalism. So without further ado, Ken, welcome and thank you very much for being here.
including Christian prayer in public schools. Click. So why is this a problem? Well, they demand that all U.S. citizens accept a provably false history. That's dangerous. It's also dangerous because it's a violation of foundational First Amendment rights of religious freedom by making Christianity the state religion and by interfering with the ability of non-Christians to exercise their religions freely. So some people said, well, you're Christians against Christian nationalism. What are you for? So we're for religious freedom for everybody, not just Christians. But we have to own the fact that these people are Christians, or say they're Christians, trying to do this. So we take it head on, and you don't have to be a Christian to join our group. Why is Christian nationalism incompatible with the teachings of Jesus? Go ahead and click. Well, it's because it calls itself Christian, but it bears no resemblance to the teachings of Jesus. Next slide. So throughout this talk, you'll be seeing this slide repeat itself several times. The way of Jesus versus Christian nationalism. I originally was going to put them all together, but that would get boring. So Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Christian nationalists say, Christians write the laws. That's a quote from Sean Fuchs, who's a Christian nationalist pastor in California. Next. How is Christian nationalism harmful? And who is it harmful to? Next. It has control, its control and hierarchical power structures create clear in-groups and out-groups. People that are okay, people who are not okay, people who are good, people who are evil, etc. And it has dehumanizing attitudes and animus. Animus means, irrational anger that makes aggression and violence and killing likely. Believing that their political adversaries are downright evil, like animals, and not fully human. These are all quotes from surveys that have been done of Christian nationalism, and that a vast majority believe these things. I'm not making this up. They're willing. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes, he did. I try not to name names. I try not to name names, but you can name your own names. They are willing to resort to violence to get their country back. They think that other people, and here I have to wade into some politics, Democrats, blacks, women, trans people, et cetera, have taken over the country, have taken control, and have too much influence. And they're willing to take to violence to get their country back. That has actually happened to me personally. The threat of violence. I somehow wandered into a Christian nationalist group on Facebook, and somebody was saying something about, I can't even remember what it was, but I said that Christian nationalism and Jesus don't go together. And that person said to me, we're going to have to shed the blood of people like you to get our country back. Also, there's an animus towards blacks, Latinos, women, LGBTQ, atheists, Jews, non-Christian religions, and especially Muslims. You'll hear them constantly talking about Sharia law, which is a bogus thing. There is no Sharia law in the United States. They don't want Sharia law. That's really what the evangelicals want. That's what Christian nationalists want. They want a Christian version of Sharia law. Next. So, Jesus said, love your neighbor. or as the sign says, no exceptions. Next. J.D. Vance, a Christian nationalist politician, says, well, first you love your family, then you love your neighbor, then you love your community, then you love your country. And after all that, maybe you love the world too. So, what denominations or groups are Christian nationalist adherents found? Well, 2/3 of white evangelicals, 2/3 of MAGA, and 2/3 of white nationalist groups self-describe themselves as Christian nationalists. Next. Okay, so people sometimes say, this feels like a cult. You know, that's because it is. So next. Yes. And again, I have to wander in a little bit into politics. Donald Trump is its leader. They say Donald Trump is their leader. And the interesting thing is, he need not believe in Christian nationalism to use its language to manipulate believers. What he does is provide a permission structure for them to hold their enemies in contempt. And in exchange, he demands veneration. You saw the thing that went up with the Trump Jesus thing. There's 20 or 30 of those things floating around. Back up for just a second. And this is the other thing, the contempt is really important thing. That contempt means they hold you as less than. You are worthy of contempt. The Dalai Lama once said, when asked, that what is our problem in the United States that we have so much division? Is it a political problem? Is it an anger problem? Is it a problem of differences? And the Dalai Lama said, no, it's a contempt problem. And the guy said, well, so what do we do? What do we do to get past this? And he said, pretend to love your neighbor. It's a good start. Next. Again, Jesus said, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And Russell Moore, who writes for Christianity Today, was in a church, and he preached on the Beatitudes, and when he got down, somebody said in the Q&A, where did you get those liberal talking points? Next. So what can be done to end Christian nationalism and, as I was saying earlier, promote religious freedom for all? Well, I want to read a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He said, it may well be that we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic works and violent actions of bad people, but for the appalling silence and indifference of good people who sit around and say, wait on time. Next. Jesus said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Joel Webben, a Christian nationalist pastor, says, Jesus doesn't help us much here. I want to reward my friends and crush my enemies. Next. So the reasons that Christian nationalism has gained traction in the United States, well, 2/3 of white evangelicals have abandoned the teachings of Jesus in favor of Christian nationalism. What a person recently said, you can really get to the heart of the matter if you ask any Christian nationalist to choose between Christian and nationalism, Christianity and nationalism. It says, they'll choose nationalism all the time. But the other thing is that the rest of Christianity has remained, as Martin Luther King said, in appalling silence. Not saying enough, not speaking out. And what we have to do is is to speak out boldly and collectively against Christian nationalism and for Christian nationalists for all. And that may be sometimes it might get you in trouble. But as somebody else said, there's such a thing as good trouble. Next. Jesus said, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. And that same survey, people said immigrants are invading our country. There was a lot more they said about that, but that just captured the main thing. Next. So, denominational efforts and national efforts against Christian nationalism. There are plenty of different denominations involved. There is, let me use my pointer, I never get to use it. The Alliance of Baptists, the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, the Baptist Joint Committee, which actually started Christians against Christian nationalism, the Disciples of Christ, the Episcopal Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, the Interfaith Alliance, Presbyterian Church USA, Seventh-day Adventist Church, United Church of Christ, and United Methodist Church all have anti-Christian nationalist programs. And probably more. Yes, in the back. I see some hands. What? Oh, I like the Pope. In terms of this is what I'm talking about. He has spoken out against Christian nationalism. He has said, this is not good. He has spoken out against extreme nationalism and warmongering and said it's not good. He's getting in trouble for it, and it's good trouble. And I really appreciate him doing that. You know, somebody once told me, one of my former parishioners actually, when they was reading some of my more recent blogs about Christian nationalism, said, why can't you stay in your lane? I love your spiritual posts. But, you know, when you start getting into this political stuff, Christian nationalism and whatnot, you know, you're getting out of your lane. And my response was, well, when I never get, what's the word? I never get not political, but partisan. I never get partisan. But this thing about Christian nationalism, it's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's not about conservative, liberal. It's about good and bad, good and evil, right and wrong. And when some politician decides to do those things, he's veering into my lane. And I get to speak out against it. Yeah, in the back. Well, I'm actually getting that. It's always good to have a ringer in the crowd because that's pretty much the next slide. So let's see. Yeah, go ahead. First it says ask your diocesan, you ask one of those people. Okay, next. And I'll get to the other one, the question of yours in a minute. Jesus said, there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male or female. That's what the Apostle Paul said. And that same Christian nationalist survey response, immigrants are replacing our cultural, ethnic background. Next. So, I'm going to jump ahead just a minute and say, to answer your question sooner than later, is that what I have found is that pastors, clergy, etc., are worried about losing members, which means they're worried about losing financial support. A lot of them are struggling enough already, and they think, why rock the boat? Well, I can tell you from my experience in my congregation that I had before, we took stands on things, not partisan stands, but right and wrong stands. And yes, people did leave. And as I said to my colleagues with a chuckle, the right people left. And more people came. When you stand for something, people don't get excited by wishy-washy. People get excited about getting clear about what's right, what's wrong, what we can do about it. So, talking to Christian nationalists, you can kind of divide Christian nationalists into three kind of pots. One, the true believer, also known in the surveys as an adherent. Second is a sympathizer, somebody that believes, well, let me back up. The true believer believes all the things about Christian nationalism. The sympathizer could believe all of them, but not as strongly, or just some of them, but is attracted to it. And then there's ambivalent, the spectator. Those that are they're not really there yet, or really know what it's about, but they're kind of curious. All right? So, next. So, the true believer. If you happen to be talking with somebody and he starts coming off with some really strong Christian nationalist beliefs, just say, I disagree, and say it proudly, and walk away calmly without displaying anger. Because talk, argument, and debate are unlikely to work. These people have been kind of programmed that anybody who's going to argue against this is evil. Next. The sympathizer. Go slow. Use caution and care. Listen more than you talk. Be confident yet gentle. Preface everything with, I believe, not you should or you are. But I believe. And you may get some defensiveness, and if you do, then go back to the last thing, say, I disagree, and walk away calmly without anger. Next. So the ambivalent, go. Go deeper. But be gentle, be wise, listen attentively, share more of your beliefs and feelings clearly, but not with anger, with just dispassionately, just these are my beliefs, what are yours? And then that's all that I ran up to things to say on that one. So next, the way of Jesus versus Christian nationalism. If you cause a little one to stumble, it would be better if you had a millstone tied around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. Jesus. Next. And we found out, and I've written on this, is that child sexual abuse is widespread in Christian nationalist, evangelical, and Pentecostal churches. Worse than it was in the Roman Catholic Church. The difference is the Roman Catholic Church can do something about it. You know, they have the Pope, they have bishops, they have some authority and control. The evangelicals don't have any of that. You can kind of fold up your tent, go somewhere else, start preaching again, engage in no misconduct. Yes? What, am I saying that? Oh. Yeah, sure. You can go to my blog, which is called The Reluctant Prophet. It's on Substack, and it's Reluctant Prophet, just spelled out, .substack.com. Yes, it does. And the reason, and it'll point you in that direction. I use a lot of footnotes. And I always answer my comments, see it and you have a question. But what really is happening is in the evangelical and Pentecostal church, there is a whole lot of focus put on obedience. Women to their husband, children to their parents, mother and father, especially the father. And they're trained from birth to when an adult tells you, do this, you do it. You don't ask. Otherwise, you probably get whipped. I also, although my mother was Jewish, I grew up with a father who I would say was Christian nationalist. He was of that variety, and he was a real believer in physical punishment. You do not ask why. Yes, he sexually molested my sisters. The thing is, I said, it's almost like pre-grooming. You know, people talk a lot about people, gay people grooming and, other kinds of people grooming children, librarians grooming children. But that is grooming. It's grooming kids to obey without question, and that's dangerous. Yeah, in the back. See, I didn't quite hear. Let me come back in. Oh, yeah. Yeah, what she's saying is that people who do these things are the first to point the finger at others. Now, I'm not saying that all evangelicals or all Pentecostals or all of them are white nationalists. I mean, I started out my Christian walk in an evangelical church, the Foursquare Gospel Fellowship. That's about as conservative as you get. But I found out right away that there was a lot of emphasis on power and control, and that felt wrong to me. So I became an ex-evangelical before ex-evangelical was cool. So next. Again, I'm not saying everybody. It's just like in the Roman Catholic Church, they're bad apples. It's just that it's so easy to do it and so easy to get away with doing it because of the lack of oversight. So what's the promise of the approach that I was talking about? Next. So remember I told you, you just, when you hit a true believer, just walk away. But go ahead and click. The true believer may ultimately hear your message indirectly from the people they trust. Click and click again. So people listen to people they trust. So you'll probably never get to the true believer. But if you're talking to people who are ambivalent or sympathizers, and you begin to get some traction with them and share some of the things that we were talking about here, they may pass that on. And so ultimately it might reach the true believer. It's always nibbling our way in from the outside. Next. So that's it. It's Q&A time. So I have my colleagues here. Stand up. Introduce yourselves.
We all serve for Christians Against Christian Nationalism in Portland.
And John?
And I'm John. I'm a recovering Catholic. So actually, if you have specific questions about Christian nationalism and Catholicism, I'd be happy to talk to them, especially after some of the stuff that happened this week, because raised Catholic, I don't know how any Catholic could ever be a Christian nationalist, but they exist.
And I will actually actually speak to, if anyone has any questions about what was said about the childhood sexual abuse in the evangelical church, I can also speak to that. I'm a therapist, and I also grew up very steeped in fundamentalism, and, but Ken was talking about corporal punishment and the focus on obedience that is so widespread in fundamentalism. And there's really, after the 2016 election, my generation, I'm a millennial, there was a huge number who left the evangelical world. And what Ken was saying, ex-evangelical, that term kind of came out of that post-2016 world. And I work actually with a lot of clients who are survivors of corporal punishment and their families are still Christian nationalists. And it's been said by the American Psychological Association, every professional organization, about the harm of corporal punishment and growing up in that world. So if anyone has any questions about that, happy to.
The other day I was joking with John and told him an Episcopal Catholic joke. It was from Garrison Keillor, who left Catholicism to join the Episcopal Church. And he said, well, it's all the grandeur, 50% less guilt. So, questions, wide open. Yeah, you.
I had an opportunity the other day to speak to a woman who I know voted for Trump all the times, but she was open, and I could see that. And I said something about coming to this meeting, and she said, what is Christian nationalism? Now, if I say, well, it's a group that is trying to change America and get it to the political side, she's going to shut down. So is it effective to say Christian nationalists believe that men are all there is, that women are, is that a better approach to
yes.
believe?
Yeah, that's a better approach. I know that I'm with a relatively curious crowd. And so what I wanted to do was kind of put it out in black and white for you all. But yeah, when you're talking with somebody else, listen more than you talk. And, put it in terms of, this is what I know about Christian nationalism. And not accuse them of anything at all. Behind you?
This is a question for John. John, I wonder if you could follow up on what you said about Christian nationalists and Catholicism. I grew up Catholic, and this is so antithetical to me, the Christian nationalism philosophy. So could you follow up on what you started to say about that?
No, go on back and stand next. Oh. We can actually go to where they are,
Well, we want everyone to hear us.
No, I meant,
Oh, this.
because you both would have the...
Catholicism is a worldwide religion, right? So how can it be nationalistic? It's a null set. So that's why I'm surprised there's any Christian nationalists. But it comes into this, people confund their nationalism and their Christianity, and at some point they get things backwards. So as an example, we now have the Vice President of the United States telling the Pope that he doesn't do his theology right. That's not correct. So that's a red-hot example of how Christian nationalism has perverted Christianity, in this case specifically Catholicism. But frankly, it's all the Christian faiths are suffering a similar fate. The unique thing about the Catholic Church is we have this worldwide figurehead, right? This is our first American Pope. Generally, we could always say, oh, we don't believe the Pope. He should keep his nose out of United States politics because he's Italian, he's from Argentina, what have you. Well, now he's from Chicago. And he's saying, no, what you're saying is not our faith.
He's a Cubs fan, too.
You can't win them all.
And can we equate nationalism then with power? They want power.
They want power.
Nationalism is
They
Christian
want
power.
control. They want
White,
power.
white men power.
White men power.
Sorry.
Yep. Bing, bing, bing. Over here.
I'm wondering how you left your evangelical family and church, and I've known folks who have left and then gone back because they were rejected by their family and they wanted to be with them. So how did you do that and stay out?
they would define themselves, they're definitely not Christian nationalist now. Actually, I'm really proud of them. They left a church that they had been going for years back in Massachusetts where I grew up. They left over their LGBTQ plus policy because my oldest sister is married to a woman, and my mother is the biggest mama bear about any of that. So I'm really proud of them, and they're an example to me of how people can evolve and grow. And they read Focus on the Family when we were growing up, and but I feel like my real awakening was in college. I actually went to George Fox in Newburgh, and which to outsiders, I live in Portland. To outsiders, it's considered conservative, but compared to where I came from, I thought it was liberal. But that's where I really fell in love with the intersection of social justice being, rooted in faith. And I think for me, the higher education was my exposure to other ways of living, other perspectives, other beliefs, and because it's so normalized, if that's what you grew up with is fundamentalism, then that's all you know. And what was that? Yes.
And it's always all a matter of degree. I had a colleague who left the Free Will Baptist, really ultra-conservative, and went to Liberty University and thought they were kind of liberal.
Yeah.
Right over here.
Yeah.
I've read and heard mostly white men feeling persecuted and oppressed is the words they will say, and it's hard to respond because you want to say, oh no, as a white man you're not persecuted and oppressed, you're actually on the top of the heap, everybody else is persecuted and oppressed, but that gets you nowhere. So I'm not quite sure how to engage with people like that.
You guys can talk too. What I would say is they're coming from a place of insecurity. Mm-hmm. So there's already something around inside them that they're fighting against. Mm-hmm. And so what I would do is say, I would befriend them. And I would say, well, tell me more about that. How do you feel? How has it happened? What does it look like? Mm-hmm. And then as they begin to talk about it, they find out they kind of convince themselves. It's like, it's like, just because somebody is saying Merry Christmas to you, it doesn't mean they're anti-Christian. Does that help? I think just engage,
I think part of it is the media.
Yeah.
There's so much media that we all get different facts, quote unquote.
Silos.
From the different medias. And so it's hard to have a conversation with someone if your facts are from different sources.
Mm-hmm.
So you're touching on a bigger issue there, disinformation. Oh, excuse me.
Use the mic, yeah.
You're touching on a bigger issue about misinformation and what have you, and this is part of the thing you're going to find when you run into the different tiers. Okay, so some of the tiers get all their news from, let's say, Fox News, for example. Are you going to break through to that person? No. What you can do is you can break through to their neighbor that watches Fox News, and then CNN. CNN has become much more conservative as the oligarchs keep buying up media. But that's another step, so it's going to be a multi-step process, I think. So when we're trying to get the word out, we need to be aware that there's persuadables, is what I call them, and then there's people that are no-hopers. And I guess my opinion is I'm not going to waste my time on the no-hopers. I'm going to try to find the people that are going to be reasonable, that are going to listen, and don't get all their news from one place.
And I would only qualify that by saying no hope now. I always believe in hope. And love. Hope and love is never wasted, but sometimes you have to walk away.
So my question has to do with dealing with family. And in fact, I have a running text message right now with my brother-in-law, who's a Catholic and very much a Christian nationalist. And any words of advice, I may need to come see you for therapy.
I can take that. Yeah, I think we have this concept that we use in therapy. It's called nonviolent communication. Where, if you ever see a couples therapist, they'll never tell you never start with you did this or you're wrong and this is X Y Z. I think start leading with like, oh, tell me more about that. Like why, and I think about what Maya Angelou said. People will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And there's a need under there. There's a feeling under there that or maybe you've already done that. Yeah.
This is such a hard time to navigate as a Christian. Because Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace, I came with a sword.
Mm-hmm.
And so often, I will send things like the meme of Trump as a messiah to my family members that are part of this cult and ask them to tell me how they feel about that. They continue to defend this person.
Mm.
And they react with, hostility that I am unpatriotic and un-American and that I should just be praying for the man, which I do.
Mm.
Several times a day, every time I hear the news.
Yeah, me too, every day.
It's
every
a
day.
constant reminder to pray without ceasing with this president, right? I think that as a believer, we're called to be light, and as uncomfortable as it gets, I will, keep trying to have dialogue with them and ruffle feathers, I guess. I'm never rude or disrespectful. I don't, tell them you're wrong and you're evil or you're part of a cult. I mean, no. Just, what do you think about this? His message on Easter Sunday using profanity and threatening to destroy a civilization. I sent that to family members. What are your thoughts? I personally am writing to the White House and complaining. This is totally unacceptable. But again, my hardcore MAGA Catholic family is, they don't want to dialogue. They really don't. They just want to talk about the weather or about family. They've let me know. No politics.
You're probably showing them something they've never seen because they're not watching any news that will show them.
Right.
Mm.
At the very least, you're planting a seed. Don't give up.
I will tell you a little story. It's not exactly on point, but very much related. When I became a follower of Jesus, a Jewish follower of Jesus, my brother didn't talk with me for 30 years.
Wow.
But eventually he did.
Mm.
He said because he met Jesus in a dream.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I was going to say too, I think letting your life speak, I think that has
Yeah.
power on its own. And, they see that. Even if they blow it off or even if they disregard it or make fun of you, they, let your life speak.
Mm. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
In the back over here, she's had her hand up for a while. I'm the MC because I have the throat mic.
Thanks. I really appreciate this information today. I come from a little bit different viewpoint, maybe, and background from a lot of people here, but I've been very concerned about this subject too as a Christian. And I've been trying to figure out how to communicate with Christian people that I know what's going wrong here and what do we need to do. So this is very helpful. Thank you. It seems to me like across all of our differences as churches and partisan differences and so forth, that if we focus on God, that's really the thing, not the country. And I think a lot of people that I know anyway seem to have that scrambled and mixed into one thing. You know, the country and God, that's it. And they're worshiping this melding, whatever it is, which is so off. You know, they don't see that those are completely different things.
Yep.
And, you know, if we could just keep our eyes on God, and even the way we talk to our relatives, you know, if we could somehow steer them back to, well, what does God say? What should we be doing? Where should we be focused? That's what I'm really trying to do, is focus more on God and his leading and not get derailed by some of these other things going on. So I don't know, I don't know how you feel about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, another slight digression. In 2010, I wrote a book called Christianity Beyond Us and Them, because I could see the writing on the wall. And the thing is, we think that we have to be in total agreement to be in fellowship with each other, and we don't. Christianity, at its heart, is about not the fact that we love Jesus, but that Jesus loves us. And if we accept that fact that Jesus loves me, Jesus loves him, Jesus loves my brother that doesn't talk to me, you know, we don't have to have uniformity to have unity. Other questions? Yes.
In listening to all this, we're all talking about it coming from the Christ side of it. There are a lot of people out there that just hearing the word Christ will turn them off. And those are people we still need to reach too.
Yeah.
So I suggest, or for me, I feel myself, but I don't press the Christ side of it because I have a lot of relatives and friends that will just turn them off. So again, you were talking, Annie, about show them how we act. And I think even saying what I want in the world is to not be beating up people on the street and kidnapping them and taking their rights away from them, because I wouldn't want that for me. Never did I say God, never did I say Christ, but my neighbor may go, yeah, me either. And I think we need to remember that too, because maybe we're becoming too siloed and fighting in a different way.
In the back, behind you on the left.
One thing that helps me and that I've done recently is I have signs in my yard, and I also have an upside-down flag. And I have people that stop by and bait me and ask me things about my flag and about some of my signage. And I just say one thing: I'm a Christian who actually reads my Bible, and I have an extra Bible. If they need it, I'll give it to them. And this is a question for anybody who can help me. I go to church with a lot of people who tell me I offend them. They don't like the buttons that I wear. They don't like my political stance, and I don't think that I take it to church, but I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of it. And I guess, you know, it's hard for me to go to a church with people who are going and voting against everything that I think we're supposed to believe in and not believe in. And so how am I supposed to love those people and be inclusive with those people when I know that they're sure in the hell not giving me the same respect?
I'll quote the Dalai Lama.
I've read all these books.
Yeah, pretend you love them.
I know.
And act like you love them. And that does something.
Yeah.
Also, you know, Jesus offended people a lot. Anything else? Yeah, over there in the lime green.
You talked earlier about just walking away from the hardcore. What do you think about shunning in general? And Matt, Cynthia was talking about, you know, toxic people.
Mm-hmm.
And
So unpack that a little for us. What do you mean by shunning?
I mean, turning your back on them, not including them socially, just almost ostracizing them. If they're toxic and you can't get through to them, sometimes I think that might work.
I mean, I was, my whole point of view is that complete cutoffs are never healthy. You know, so remaining willing is important. You know, but the thing is, if you're talking to somebody and they're shouting back at you, it's better to just say, God loves you, I'm trying to, and walk away.
Yeah, I agree with what Ken said also with
Excuse me.
not completely cutting people off, but being very, very boundaried, paying attention to your own nervous system. If you're feeling starting to get really activated, starting to get really angry, and may say something you'd regret later, setting back clear boundaries. You know, this is what I will tolerate, and this is what I won't. If there's any kind of, you know, name calling, you know, yelling, screaming, you know, keeping yourself very boundaried and, you know, paying for your own self-care, for your own well-being. I think there's that real balance there.
Well, Jesus taught the disciples when he commissioned them that if he's not welcome, if they're not welcome somewhere, they should leave and shake the dust off their sandals.
And the thing is, you can do that without being a jerk about it. There was a cartoon, I think it was in the New Yorker, which had somebody showing up at the pearly gates talking to St. Peter. And St. Peter says, yeah, your doctrine was right, but you forgot the part about not being a jerk about it.
I want to thank you for helping me understand kind of the definition of Christian nationalism. And the thing that you said that made the most sense to me is if you think about Christian and you think about nationalism and they start swinging over to that nationalism side, then that's kind of the key and the clue.
The tell, yeah.
And yeah, the tell. And so I appreciate now knowing kind of how to recognize that. Do you have any tips for how to swing it back the other way?
I mean, my go-to is always talk about Jesus. There are some people who won't get within 20 yards of me because I wear a collar. Any thoughts?
I would just be curious of, like, where did they learn to hate their neighbor? Where in the Bible did Jesus hate his neighbor? Yeah, like, where does that come from? That why is it that you veer nationalist over Christian? Oh my God. Oh my God.
So,
yeah.
I was always told to try and read the room, and the first person has already left. So I think we should wind it up.
Yeah.
One last question. And you can pigeonhole us afterwards.
Okay, so Project 2025 is very detailed, very step by step how we do what we want to do. How do you, as an organization, is there something that there is an answer to some of that? How you expose that, how you put that out there? What's the response to something that's so organized and so effective?
Yeah. There are several people who write blogs on the subject, who come from the Christian nationalist background but are recovering. And that's a good start. Anything you'd add?
I would just add, you need to make it clear that Christian nationalism is a political ideology. So you can't get into this space that, oh, we're not going to discuss politics, because it's a political ideology that's usurped your Christianity. If you're dealing with people that have legitimate Christian beliefs, they need to separate those from the political things that they learned on Fox News or whatnot, okay? If they have a strong Christian foundation, you can show them, oh, Jesus would not do that. So if they come out with one of these things, oh, we have to bomb Gaza into rubble, say, well, that doesn't seem very Christian to me. I think that's the best you can do. Be very clear about what's your politics and what's your religion and which one you value most.
Okay, we lied. One more. And then that's it. I swear.
So mine isn't a question, but some of you might find a book by, and I don't know if I know how to pronounce his name correctly, John Fusselgang.
Fusselgang.
And he's going to be speaking in Portland this spring as part of the Collins lecture. But anyway, he takes these different racism, women, the whole list that we've been talking about, and he ties it to Jesus's teachings. And they're just short, and you could memorize 3 or 4 of them. Whatever ones are the favorites of these people you run into. Just pick out a few of his arguments. They're not arguments, but his quotes, and give it back to him. Such separation of church and hate, John Fusselgang.
Yeah, pigeonhole us afterwards if you want. Thank you.